Hey, badass business owners, welcome back to the show. Have you ever wondered how some people are able to build this amazing business without ever having to spend a dime on advertising? Have you ever wondered how it is that they're able to be so busy and yet they don't do postcards, they don't do flyers, they don't get into the local paper, they don't do stuff on Facebook, they don't do any of that stuff, but yet they are able to continue to grow year after year after year. They never have to worry about where they're going to get their next customers from. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about that because it really comes down to one thing, and that is by understanding the lifetime value of your typical customer. And we're going to walk through some numbers and an easy way for you to be able to figure this out as well. Because once you are able to understand that if you really focus on your customer, each one that you get, and by giving them the love and the high satisfaction and the great customer service, and you continue to let that fester and grow, oh my gosh, it is amazing how much business you can get just from taking care of each customer as if they were gold, and that you spent your time and energy more on how you're going to keep them than running out trying to find new ones. You see, warm leads, people that are already using you, people that already love you, have a way higher value than you going out spending thousands of dollars trying to chase people that don't even know who you are, instead of using this valuable resource. Let me explain. Let's just say you have a customer that uses your business and they spend $50 in order a month for you to be able to use them. So at $50 a month, it doesn't sound like a lot. And you're like, well, Tammy, you don't understand. My expenses are more like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. This $50 person, I can take or leave. I can replace them. But really, can you? Let's kind of walk through a little bit about this customer. Let's just say you have this customer and they're a good, solid customer. They never really complain. They're happy and they love your service. Well, if they use you once a month, that's $50 times 12 months, which means they're worth about $600. Now, I understand at this point, and you're looking at a $5,000 nut that you have to crack every single month in order to make your expenses, but bear with me here, all right? So we know that this one customer is $50, 12 months is $600. But let's just also say that this customer, because you take really good care of them, they stick around for a while. So in their lifetime, let's kind of walk through at least the next 5 years. In 3 years, they'd be $1,800. And in 5 years, they've spent $3,000. Now, I know what you're thinking, Tammy, we're still not hitting my numbers. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. So let's just call this Mrs. Smith. And Mrs. Smith is very, very happy with you. And you take really good care of Mrs. Smith. So much so that Mrs. Smith tells all her family and friends about you all the time. Whenever somebody asks about your services and who they should use, she's always telling them you. Now, let's just say that Mrs. Smith is able to convert 2 people, just 2. She tells hundreds, but let's just say she's able to convert 2 a year to use your services. Well, not only do you have Mrs. Smith's $600 a year for using your services, because Mrs. Smith brought you 2 new customers, also at the $50, also 12 months out of the year, they each are worth $600 as well. So now you've got an additional $600 for Mrs. Smith, $600 for friend number 1, and $600 for friend number 2. Now Mrs. Smith in that year is worth $1,800. So in 1 year, she's given you $1,800, not in the 3 years. Yes, her personally might be, but what she's recommending and who she's telling has grown. Now, let's just say Mrs. Smith continues to do this year after year, gets you at least 2 new customers. Well, after 2 years, that's an additional 2 people. So now Mrs. Smith is giving you about $3,000 a year. And then in year 3, she adds 2 more people on. So because you took really good care of Mrs. Smith, she's now $4,200 a year. After year 4, it's $5,400. And then after year 5, Mrs. Smith is worth $6,600. So really, after 5 years, what you're thinking, if you just look at Mrs. Smith alone, yeah, remember she was only $3,000 after 5 years at her $50 a pop a month. But the reality is, with what Mrs. Smith is doing, she is bringing in not only her $600, but $600 here, $600 here, $600 here, $600 here. She is a money-making machine for you.
She is so much more than just her $50 every single month. And it's very important that you recognize her value to your actual business was in just 5 years. Now, can you imagine if Mrs. Smith continues to use you year after year after year? That continues to grow. But wait, there's more. Just like an infomercial, Mrs. Smith referred 2 people each year. Well, those 2 people, if you make them fall in love with you because you're treating each and every customer just like you do Mrs. Smith, well, they also are now referring you out to new friends and other people. Well, guess what? Because Mrs. Smith brought those 2 aboard, don't you think the people they bring aboard are also attributed back to Mrs. Smith? Because guess what? Mrs. Smith, at the end of the day, just one Mrs. Smith who really loves you and finds the right people for your business could ultimately be responsible for $100,000 plus a year in your business because of the tree branches that she has created off of her one business. And if you treat every single person just like you would Mrs. Smith, then their branches will create business and their branches will create business. Can you see how sometimes people blow up their business and they've never had to spend a dime because they truly understand the value of Mrs. Smith, and they understand that if they take care of her, she's going to take care of them, and it continues to grow. So my question is, would you rather spend $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 a year chasing new people, or would you rather take the time and energy and take care of Mrs. Smith? It didn't cost you anything other than treating her the way you should treat every single customer. But if you also want to throw Mrs. Smith something every holiday season or some special perk because you know Mrs. Smith is the tree trunk of a massive branch, you're just going to continue to keep Mrs. Smith in love with you. Do you even know who these top customers who refer you out like crazy are? And do you really take care of them? Sure, maybe some of the people she brings aboard won't stick around and maybe they might come and go, but she's going to continue to replace them on a regular basis. In some years, she's going to have more than 2 people convert over and use your business on a regular basis. She probably does more than 2, period, depending upon the type of business that you have. My main point that I want to try to get across to you today is if you don't have the time, the energy, and the money to spend on advertising and going that way, what you do have the time, energy, and money for is to take care of each and every customer that you have to a degree to where they cannot fathom going somewhere else because you understand their lifetime value is more than just their service every single year. It's what they bring in every single year, and more importantly, who they bring in every single year. Who do they tell about your business? Who do they share their experiences with? Who else do they bring into your business for you? Let your customers, let your Mrs. Smiths be out there creating business for you. Let them do the advertising and bring them in. You need to sit down and you need to figure out the lifetime value of a customer. Them alone, but more importantly, what else happens when their branches start to sprout and they bring in more people into your business? Please take this exercise this week. Do it. You might be shocked by what you find. And please, whatever you do, get out there and take care of those customers like they're gold, because the reality is they're money-making machines for you if you just take care of them. Hey, badass business owner, before you go, as you know, I'm a huge believer in you knowing your business numbers. After all, it isn't about how much you sell. It's about what you keep. And the best way to grow your profits is to start diving in and understanding those business numbers. To help you on this journey, I have created the Know Your Business Numbers course. We will walk through how to read your profit and loss statement. You'll learn the key calculations that'll help ensure that you're making a healthy profit on all of your products or services, plus a ton of other good stuff that'll help you learn how to use those business numbers to create even more sales and profits. Just check out the link below in the show notes or visit knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com. So if you're ready to increase those profits, it's time you start diving into your business numbers.